on this computer. And we are recording. Hello for Wirecast Wednesday. It is early December, and I'm Eric, and let's talk Wirecast because we've gotten lots of emails. I got some from even one from Patrick this morning about talking about emails. Try not to lean on the table too much here. To talk about what is up for prepping for basketball and wrestling, and extra cameras. How can you get multiple cameras without having a switcher into Wirecast? It is doable if you've got a little bit of equipment, or you've got a updated iPhone or an updated iPad. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. As far as prep, I want to first start with my announcers. Your preparation is the first thing that anybody is going to notice about your broadcast. Doesn't matter if you are doing basketball, football, wrestling, track, whatever it is. If you show up and sit down and you haven't looked at a roster or know anything about who's doing anything on the floor, that's going to be very noticeable right away. So try to be at least minimally prepared, at least have some idea of who is playing in the game and have some of those numbers. Hopefully you know your own school pretty well, so you know what some of those guys like to do and girls, how they're playing on the year, how they're wrestling, whatever it is. And then you've got to expand your knowledge base a little bit. The NSAA website has everybody's season records as far as basketball is concerned. Many schools, not all, but many are using Max Preps to post their individual stats. So those are always fun to be able to say that so-and-so is scoring 15 points a game. And look at this, he's got 16 points at the end of the third quarter. So a big night in store for Johnny. And Susie, she averages 15, but she's only scored 7 so far. Let's see if she can get herself going in the rest of the game. All of that preparation is what can really start to separate the very basic talking about a game and saying what we can already see. We don't necessarily need that, but can you as an announcer, play-by-play, or color person add a little bit more to what we can already see? That's when you start to go next level stuff. And again, that's true for any sport, any activity, no matter what. That's the preparation that I wanted to talk about, because I know the question of the hour right now has become, Eric, we want multiple cameras. So let me show you something here real quick. Option 1 in Wirecast is everybody's favorite USB web camera. These things have gotten a lot better recently, and so if your laptop is updated and you've got a fairly new web camera that just plugs into USB, you can get pretty decent picture. Now, these web cameras do have some limitations, difficult to zoom. So if you expect to have a web camera at the top of your gym and you think you can try to see something really well across the gym, that's probably not going to happen. But if you are set up for wrestling and you are able to set up your stream, maybe you have 2 mats going and you have your regular laptop and camera pointed at one mat, and right next to that is the other mat, and you have this web camera on mat level and all the action's pretty close. This can be a nice little source of a camera. The other thing that we've seen some schools do is use this USB camera to point directly at a scoreboard in basketball. For those of you that don't have kids that are running the Strive scoreboard during the game, you can point this at the scoreboard and then crop around it and actually show that up in a corner, just like as if you were that way you'd have a live scoreboard. You'd never have any question about the clock, because the clock would be exactly what everyone else in the gym is seeing. And so these things can be pretty handy. This is a Logitech. I believe it's a C920 is what it is, and can be pretty handy. And you can up your Zoom game. I'm just on the FaceTime camera on the laptop today, but I've been doing the Wirecast Wednesdays on the web camera. So they work pretty good. Audio isn't the greatest, so again, you got to make sure that you're managing your audio, but the web camera is probably the first thing to take a look at. And I'm going to try to share my screen, hopefully, here with everybody. and I'm going to share Wirecast here real quick. So that should take us over there. And what I'm going to do is show you how to, by the way, I am on, for everyone that always asks, I am on Wirecast 9 right now. Some of the things that I'm going to talk about are going to work for, like the web camera will work for just about any version of Wirecast. When we start talking about Rendezvous, if I don't say it then, Wirecast 8.2 and later is what can run Rendezvous. So if I fail to mention that later, remind me. And this is how you do the USB web camera, though. I'm just adding a video capture is all I'm doing, and you see it pop it right in there. The HD Pro webcam C920, and pretty easy to bring it in there. You see it comes in pretty small. That's a problem, so we go stretch to fit. And you can see how it's a little pixelated because it is so stretched. One of the reasons that it's a little tougher to use, but there's a slightly closer view of me if you wanted that for some reason. And this is why we say it's nice to have this camera be available for a scoreboard. And how would we do a scoreboard? Well, if we went back to our shot, and let's say for the sake of this video, because I don't have the camera and the mini recorder plugged in, you'd be looking on your video capture for Ultra Studio Mini Recorder. For now, we're going to do the FaceTime camera, and we're going to pretend that the FaceTime camera is the main camera. That's normally our mini recorder, and we're going to put the webcam on top of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my webcam, because you can see over here that it's below, so I can't see it at all. Now it's on top, and now I can't see me at all. So I'm going to set that camera down so that I don't give anyone motion sickness. And this is where the scaling of that video can come in real handy, right? So I can scale that down, move it around up into a corner. And so, one moment, please. Give you guys something to actually look at. Beautiful downtown Henderson, Nebraska. Now you can actually have, so here would be your mini recorder in this full area, and then up in that corner that's tough to do, reverse. So that is the web camera. And there's how I would have two video sources with really one main camera, one mini recorder, one input there, but with an inexpensive web camera. I can point that at the scoreboard, crop it down, resize it if I needed to, and I could have the live scoreboard available at all times. If I was using this two camera setup in a wrestling type atmosphere, I would probably do something like this then. So I would take my FaceTime camera and I would resize it. I would scale it down and I would move it to a corner. And then I would come back to my web camera and I would stretch it out so it's a little bigger and move that kind of in a corner. You see I'm kind of overlapping a little bit. This is where you would have to play around with exactly what camera view you have. But now I've got both cameras in the same shot. And now I would probably want to label these in some way, shape, or form, right? So I would probably go to an overlay with some text and add that to my shot. And I would come into my new text here, and I'd go to my properties, and I'd give it a second, and I would say, I would call this Matt 1. And I would put that there. And then I would come back and I would add new text and add that as a new source. And I would wait for that to fill in. And I'd come to my properties and I'd give it a second to load. And then I'd type in Matt 2. And I would drag that on top of there. So now I've got, and you know, I'd probably throw my school logo down here or something. One thing that has been fun to do actually is track wrestling has really expanded in the last few years. A lot of schools are using that to keep track of, a wrestling tournament. Track wrestling has a view where you can see the active mats and who is coming up next. It's what they put on the big screen at, it's not CenturyLink anymore. It's now CHI Health Center Omaha for state wrestling, right? That's what you see on the big board there is who is on what mat and what mat will be the next matches, who's coming up. You can actually do a screen capture, just like capturing the scoreboard of track wrestling, and put that into one of these. So maybe you wanted to take mat 1, not all of it, just mat 1. So you could take mat 1 here, and then you could probably take your FaceTime camera, and you'd probably make this just a little bit smaller. And maybe you would actually take mat 1, scale that down, drop that up there in the corner, and then you'd take mat 2, and you'd scale that down a little bit, and you put that over here. And then you would add your screen capture to this area here. So you'd take your screen capture and then shrink it down and capture just that part of track wrestling. And then you could still have some room up here for more information. So you could see both mats, see who was wrestling, what the scores were, and any other wrestling invite information that you would want. Again, so that web camera, has some limitations as far as the picture quality and whatnot, but can be serviceable for sure when you're talking about especially some action that's going to happen close range. So that would be two cameras, obviously. We have a few schools that already have a 2 camera set up. They have a full camera, HDMI cord, mini recorder, Thunderbolt, and they're using both Thunderbolt inputs on the laptop. So they already have 2 cameras, good cameras. So that web camera could be a 3rd camera option. Well, then you could have mat 3 over here be available to be seen. And then you'd have track wrestling down here. So those are some possibilities to work around with a USB web camera. I'm going to pause there so that anybody who is watching this live, if you've got a thought or a question, pop in here now. And if we don't, then we'll keep moving on. Everybody's good to go. All right. We will move on then. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this shot because the next thing I want to show you, again, this is on Wirecast 8.2 or newer, is a feature called Rendezvous. And Rendezvous is really cool. When I saw the release notes come out for this and I started to play around with it a little bit, I'm like, this is really Zoom built into Wirecast, because what we're doing is we're going to create a link that we can share with somebody else on another device, and we can pull their camera and their microphone into Wirecast. This is kind of cool. This is some fun stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, and I believe it's a network thing. And yeah, here it is. So we have this create rendezvous session. And when I hit add, it's going to pop up this little dialog box. And just like the Zoom link that Sarah emails everybody and puts in Slack and puts on Facebook, all we're doing is creating this link that people can find. So I'm going to click to copy that, and I'm going to hit OK. And once I hit OK, I believe the dashboard is going to come up next. So I'm going to swipe away. So you can't see what I'm about to do, but I'm going to, I think it'll work in Slack. I'm going to share that link with myself, because I don't talk to myself nearly often enough already. But I'm going to share that, and I'm going to open the link on my phone. So I'm going to go where I have that where I just shared that link for myself. So you'd be probably emailing it to yourself. I open that link. If you're on an iPhone or an iPad, it's going to probably ask you to install Wirecast Go. That's the app that works with this. I've already got the app, so I want to make sure that it's ready to go. And then because I've already got it, I can hit open. And then when I come back, move this back down here. If I can come back down here, I should be able to add move that over there. I should be able to add my connections here. I might have done something wrong there. Hold on a second here. Yeah.
Is that, if you're underneath, go back to where you were, there above there, there's a Wirecast Go function that's showing up Eric iPhone. Is that what you're trying to connect to? Just above the Rendezvous?
Hey, yeah, there I am. Yep. There I am. So yeah, because I'd already created it, I don't need to send it back in. So now I can, as you can see, I'm pulling in the audio. Thank you for that. I'm pulling in the audio from my phone into Wirecast. So that could be helpful, or I can shut that off. And now, just like I was doing before, if I wanted to edit, and you guys don't need to see me anymore. You're already seeing me enough, right? We will give you that shot, and then we can edit. So just like we did with the webcam a second ago, we can add another video source to this. So I'm going to add the FaceTime camera next. And then what I'm going to do is, this will be fun. I can actually, let's go ahead and add the webcam. And so now what I've got is I've got my web camera that I can put up here in this corner. And I'm going to select my FaceTime camera, scale that down so I can put it in, let's say, this corner. And then I can select on my iPhone, because that's what I called my shot. And now, nope, not move it, but I'm going to scale it. And now what I've got is I have 3 camera sources, only one of which is the actual camera, right? I'm pretending that our FaceTime camera is what you would normally be having for a mini recorder shot. Now I still have space down here for for a screen capture of track wrestling or something like that. Most versions of Wirecast, you can actually support up to 2 rendezvous sessions. So in theory, you could have 2 different iPads. So you could have 4 total spots that you were running at the same time, which can be really kind of cool. Not that one. I want the iPhone one to resize a little bit, and then I can click on the webcam. And this is where, you kind of play around with it to make sure your 4 places were pretty close to the same size. But there, you would have to be careful about what audio you were bringing in. You'd probably maybe want to set your soundboard up so that you could have one audio source that maybe even if all it did was have a crowd mic to it, that would be the way to go. You probably wouldn't want the iPad or the iPhone to have different audio, and the web camera. You see the web camera and the FaceTime don't actually have audio, so that works well. But we can sure mute that. Then we just add our USB codec if we have an extra USB spot. I've got one place to do all of the audio from. that's kind of the nuts and bolts of getting multiple cameras into it. That Rendezvous thing is pretty cool. And like you saw there, I didn't need to create a new session. Once I've sent that to somebody, that same person or that same email address can open that same link on the same iPad or the same iPhone, and it pulls it right in. So that is really, really fun. And the limitation, if you will, on a rendezvous session is that rendezvous session really kind of needs to be, for best results, needs to be on the same network as what your streaming laptop is. So if you're in the gym for wrestling, and you've got, like I said, the laptop is on ground level and that iPad is on ground level, they're probably both connected to the same Wi-Fi. You're going to be good to go. We've had less luck trying to use it when it's on a different connection, a different network, especially for an iPad or an iPhone to do, because when it uses data, that really bogs down some bandwidth. And to lower the viewer bandwidth enough makes it so you might as well just not watch it. So this is kind of the cool way that we have had some schools lay this out. There would be a second Zoom session that I could do for schools that do have a switcher. What they can actually do is grab the multi-view output. Instead of sending that directly to a monitor, they can actually bring that multi-view output to Wirecast, and they can actually have the 3 cameras or 2 cameras, whatever it is, pulled in, and only one input source with a mini recorder. But if you don't have a switcher, don't worry about anything I just said. This would be a good way to go. And you can have, like I said, basically everybody's version of Wirecast, you can have 2 rendezvous sessions going. So you could have, instead of this USB camera, you could have a second rendezvous session with a second iPad. Everybody's in the gym at the same time, and you can go with that. You still got room for the screen capture that would be getting track wrestling. Or if you've got, maybe you have like a Google Sheet or a Google Doc that you can do a screen capture of what is coming up next. The nice thing about track wrestling is it automatically updates, so there's less to worry about in that regard. That is really what I wanted to talk about for this one today. For Wirecast Wednesday, the multiple camera options can be pretty cool, and they can be a lot of fun to work with. If you're doing a student news show, Rendezvous could be a lot of fun too. You can actually have a remote viewer or a remote interviewee from somewhere else in the school during the live show, and all you need is the iPhone to bring it in. So that can be a lot of fun. I will take questions, thoughts, comments from people, whether it's about a secondary camera or if it's about anything else now.
Hey, Eric.
Somebody's talking. Who's talking?
Patrick.
Patrick, there you are.
Okay. Question. Well, when we record this, then will it record all the cameras right away? Then it's
yes.
Your shot
so
that it's recording.
Right. When you hit record in Wirecast, what you're recording is whatever comes out of your live phone. Obviously, I haven't taken that live yet. But yes, when you hit record, well, it's just not going to stay up. It's going to record the live output. So whatever you've got in the live window is what's getting recorded.
And then my other question, then, since it doesn't sound like anyone else has any, is it possible to have a better resolution for what you record versus what you stream? So stream isn't getting bogged down or anything, but then when you go to upload it later and people rewatch it, you have a little bit better quality.
You can change the record settings on the recorded disc. It would be like this, output settings. And I would click on everybody should have the RTMP server. Obviously that's what's going to your channel. and the recorded disc is where you could.
All we can see is Wirecast right now.
Oh, you can't see your output. Okay, hold on a second. Let me. New share. All right. Now, do you guys see the output settings?
No.
No? Let me stop that share. Now you see me. Now let's go to the desktop. Now you see Wirecast again?
Correct.
Hey, Eric. Oh, okay. Now we see the output setting.
Now you see the output. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Patrick, this is where you could edit on recorded disc and the encoding settings. If you've got some room to bump up, it would be this average bit rate right here. Normally we go about 800, but you could take it to 1200, 1500 would maybe. If the thing that we've found is if you get the recording and the stream too different on the bit rate, it will affect the stream and make it kind of glitchy at times. So we would recommend not getting the number for the recording too different from what the stream encoding is, but that is something that you can play with just a little bit.
Okay. Now the width and height, I'm assuming you recommend keeping the same.
I would recommend keeping that the same. Yep.
Okay.
Because we have not had good luck if you start changing the width and the height. Like if you record at 720, but you're only outputting at 480, then Wirecast gets a little more confused on things sometimes.
Okay.
Cool. Sarah, did you have something?
No, I don't have anything. I was just going to mention, if you guys haven't seen it yet, but there's a chat within this Zoom, and James Reed shared a few things, and along with Marcus. So just wanted to draw attention to that, to look at some of their comments.
I did see that. Where am I going? You know, I've done enough of these Zooms. You'd think I could figure out where everything is. Chat, too. There we go. James says, yes, moving the iPhone walking around creates choppy video. Yes, that is also one of the downfalls there, or the limitations of what your iPhone or your iPad will be able to do is when that camera starts moving around, it does get choppy real fast. So would really recommend finding, if you are going with a Rendezvous and you're going with an iPad or an iPhone, would recommend some sort of tripod or mount that would keep that phone steady and wouldn't be bumping around. Yes, would not handhold it and expect the video to be a good quality into the stream. That will make everyone think you're watching Blair Witch Project and make your viewers throw up pretty quick. Okay, so Marcus was also in the chat there. Johnson County Central, they stream pretty good quality. Marcus is a bit more of a wizard. They've got some fun stuff that they do. What are you recording at for your encoding settings? Do you know, Marcus?
I actually don't really remember what the exact settings are, but the stream is closer to 720, but we record at 1080.
Okay, so you're recording real high quality, really. Nice.
Marcus, could you by chance take a screenshot or something of your settings for that and then send that to me, or send it to Eric to get to me?
Yeah, I have a copy of our stream one just from last night, but I'll make sure I get the recording one as well.
Okay.
And we're on a PC, so, and it's actually, we have so many home games I don't even tear it down right now, so it's in the gym, so I'll have to get that.
Okay.
Yeah, Marcus has a slightly unique setup for Strive schools. They've got a PC with capture cards built into the tower, as opposed to all of our Mac schools with the mini recorder. And so, like I said, we recommend that those one settings, but if you've got some equipment to handle it, then having a higher output and a higher recording is okay too. Cool. Anybody else question? Maybe not even wrestling recorded or anything like that. I've either really explained it well. By the way, everyone is muted on your mic right now, so if you want to talk, you have to unmute yourself. So I've either explained everything really well, or we've just not spurred any questions. That's okay too.
I guess, Eric, for wrestling, my commentators don't really feel confident on trying to describe live action. So would you say don't go with any commentary the whole day? Or would you have someone come in once in a while and explain who's on the mats or not? Because I could see maybe people will quit listening and just watch if no one's on there. Or, what would you recommend?
Okay. So my recommendation is full disclosure, not a wrestler, never really involved in wrestling. Can only barely tell you what a takedown is because I see, and reversal is too, because I see that. Like you kind of pick things up if you go to enough of them, but if you don't go to a lot, it's really tough to pick them up. So what I do when I go to a wrestling invite, and we will actually be in Amherst the first Saturday of January, I believe that's the 5th. What I do as a play-by-play or I not even a play-by-play guy, I'm really just announcing what is happening without actually saying what is happening. So with that, what I mean is I'm looking at what I do is I try to give an update basically continuously of what is happening on mat 1 is so-and-so from X school against so-and-so from Y school. That score is 3-2, and they've got a minute and a half left in the first period. On mat 2 is so-and-so against B school, and they're going against so-and-so from A school. They've got 2 minutes left in the third period in that one. And so what I try to do is, from a wrestling standpoint, because I don't know the moves, I don't know exactly all of the points. I have a rudimentary understanding of it. But what I try to do is I try to point out areas of focus. If I see that mat 3 has 30 seconds left in the third period and it's 2-1, then my attention is going to mat 3 for the last 30 seconds of that match. And that's what I'm going to talk about. Even though I can't really give specifics on what's happening, I can tell you that your attention should probably be on mat 3 as well, as a general viewer. And then once mat 3, okay, yep, that kid won 2-1. Now look at the other 2 mats. What is there? What is coming up on mat 3? That's where track wrestling is great because I can tell, yep, mat 3, that's the next match coming up is over there. That'll be a fun one to watch. And while they're getting ready, though, I'm going to look at mat 2 because they're just about to finish their third period. That gets done, and now mat 3 is going again. So you almost end up being a little bit of an auctioneer, and you're just kind of pointing people's attention where you think is the most exciting action. Sometimes you miss a pin, especially early in a day. I will also say this: when it comes to an all-day wrestling invite, I do not talk all day. I will let that first 2.5 hours or so go, and those first couple of rounds before I start talking. I let track wrestling tell everybody who is on what mat and what the scores are, because wrestling happens so fast. Which tab is it? Brackets. It's results, I believe, James, is the tab that I show. It's not a bracket. I would have to get back into track wrestling to show that. I might have to do that for next week's. Sarah, do you want to jot that down, that I need to play around with track wrestling so I can actually say which we do a screen capture of, but it's not the brackets because you've got 12 different weight classes. So it would be next to impossible to show everybody's bracket, but there is a view on track wrestling where you can see who is active on a mat and what's the next match on the mat. And I think maybe even who's in the hole kind of thing. So in that regards, track wrestling is really good, but I will do that for next week for sure, James. And if I play around with it more before that, I'll shoot you an email and show you what we do for a screen capture. But yeah, from an announcing standpoint, I really kind of do an auctioneer. It's over here, it's over there, it's in the middle, it's over here, it's over there, it's in the middle kind of deal. Because I don't have the wrestling background. Now, if you've got someone in your community that does have a good wrestling background and that can do some announcing without getting really excited, because wrestling at high levels can get very exciting. I love being in a gym when you've got two ranked guys going at it, because boy, it can get real loud real fast. That's a lot of fun. But if you've got somebody in the community that knows wrestling and knows why are these two kids ranked, or why are they both 13-0? Well, they've done so-and-so. They're good at this. Yeah, put them on the mic and let them help a kid along. Then that kid can kind of point attention around, and then someone that knows more about wrestling can talk more about the specifics, especially when you get into a championship round type atmosphere. Anybody else? I've talked more about wrestling in the last 40 minutes than I've talked about wrestling since like last state wrestling. All right. Well, if nobody else has any thoughts or questions, I will stop the recording. Thanks for watching.